Good Tuesday morning, everybody. Hope you guys are having a good start to your day. And let's take a look at some of the results from the most recent week of football. A lot of my viewers, a lot of people who comment on my videos responded very positively to the video I made last week talking about who Seahawks fans should be rooting for. People really seem to like that series, which is cool because I didn't think I was going to be able to bring it back this year because I didn't think the Seahawks would be in any kind of great playoff position, but here we are. So I brought it back and people, they dig it. So I figured on Tuesday, why not take a look at the results and break down what it means for us. And the cool thing about this year is that games being played in the NFL can mean something to the Seahawks on two different levels, right? Like most years, you're looking at NFC teams and you're saying, okay, we want the NFC teams to lose because the fewer NFC teams make the playoffs in front of the Seahawks, the more likely the Seahawks make the playoffs. But there's also the other angle of it, and that makes almost every game compelling, which is the Denver draft pick scenario, where we want Denver to pick as high as possible in this upcoming draft. So that makes almost every game of interest to us. So sure, let's talk about what went down this week. Let's analyze whether or not we got good results or bad results. Obviously, the Seahawks lost. We know that's a bad result for us. But how did the rest of the week go? It actually went, I think, fairly well. First of all, the Monday night game actually just wrapped up. I'm recording this right after the game ended. It'll go up in the morning. So Philly's undefeated season is over. They drop one to the Commanders at home. And as I said in my video last week, I think that's actually kind of bad. I had one or two people say, no, we should want the Eagles to lose so we can catch the Eagles. We're not catching the Eagles, guys. Not with that schedule. The Eagles' schedule is baby doo-doo soft. They would have to completely melt down for us to have any chance of catching them. And, I mean, I guess they did lose yesterday to a mediocre Commanders team, but the meltdown that Philly would have to go through for us to catch them would be something else. Honestly, I'm more concerned about the Commanders now because the Commanders are actually playing pretty decent football. They're 5-5, and they're absolutely in play for a wild card spot. And I don't think that's necessarily good for Seattle because as much as we are happy to be leading our division at the moment, the NFC West, we absolutely could end up in play for a wild card spot, and a team like the Commanders, if they keep playing the way they are, could snatch that. So last night's result, I do believe that is definitely bad for Seattle. Philly is kind of out of range at this point as far as I'm concerned. If there was any chance of catching Philly, I think it left when we lost to Tampa Bay. But the rest of the week actually went pretty decently. Carolina helped us out big time. This is a big one right here. Carolina beat Atlanta, which knocks Atlanta down a little bit, which is big because we don't have the tiebreaker against Atlanta. So if it ends up in a circumstance where both us and them win the division, then they would own the tiebreaker, and that could decide home field, that could decide seeding. Now, at this point, it's somewhat unlikely that Atlanta wins the division because they're spiraling just a little bit here, but it's still in play, and I think it's significant that Atlanta loses this game, which they did, and Carolina gets a win, which pushes their draft pick down a little bit, which also helps on the Denver side of things. So, great result. Vikings, Bills, not so much, but at this point, are we really going to catch the Vikings? Because the Vikings play in that really weak division. So I think they still got a game left against the Lions. They got a game left against the Bears. They still got a game against the Packers, which I know the Packers won yesterday. We'll talk about that in a minute here, but I don't think the Packers are suddenly some great team. I think the Vikings have a relatively easy road to 12-plus wins, and that might be a little too much for us to catch. So I don't know if it really matters that much. I don't think we're going to be in play for a top NFC record. Once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. But in terms of catching these teams in the regular season, I think it's relatively unlikely. So not a big deal, but technically we were hoping the Bills would pull that off. Lions beat the Bears. Great result. Lions get a win. They now actually have two in a row taking them out of play for a super high draft pick. If they can win a few more, they may push themselves lower than Denver permanently, because we'll talk about Denver in a second here, but they may be poised to go on a massive losing streak at the end of the year. And while I could be wrong, I think that the Bears are going to find a way to win a couple games down the stretch. I don't know against who, I don't know where, but that team is playing some very fun, very interesting football right now. And with the way Justin Fields is going right now, the way he's found his game in the last month or so, I look at that Bears team and I go, even if they're underdogs in every game they play the rest of the year, they're going to find a way to surprise somebody because of what Justin Fields is doing for them. So while I could see a team like the Lions just go on some giant losing streak, so I'm happy they bank wins, I think we're okay with the Bears. So I think that's a great result. Broncos losing to the Titans, obviously awesome. Broncos' playoff chances are basically in the toilet now, so they're not so bad they're going to go into the tank here. Obviously, they have no reason to tank, but the important thing to come away from that game as a Seahawks fan is the problems didn't get fixed. Now, their run defense was better against the Titans, right? Like, they held Derrick Henry down, but nothing really changed on the offense. Them winning that London game, them getting on the right track, going into the bye week, getting the bye week just in general, none of it helped. They're still the same bad team with a bad offense. So that pick is looking very good right now. And these next 2 weeks are huge for our pick. Because let's actually jump over to Tankathon here and see that because of the results of this most recent week, that pick is now number 7 overall. Denver actually currently has the highest pick of any team in the 3 and 6 range because of tiebreakers. They actually own the tiebreaker, or I guess the other way to put it would be they don't have the tiebreaker against like the Rams because of some obscure tiebreaker that I'm not even familiar with. And they have a weak strength of schedule, so they actually own number 7 right now. If they lose these next 2 games to the Raiders and the Panthers, then we might actually be getting that top 3 pick after all, because both those teams are currently picking higher than Denver. So you got Vegas, you got Carolina. Honestly, if Denver loses those 2 games, and I don't believe they will, I actually think that Denver wins both. But if they do, I think we could get the number 2 pick, because at that point, I don't know how Denver wins another game the rest of the way. So very interesting to see what happens the next 2 games. I'm obviously hoping for positive results there. Honestly, I'm kind of hoping that they lose a couple of these next 2 games and Denver just decides to shut it down. Like Wilson probably shouldn't be playing right now with all the injuries he's dealing with anyway. So if they lose a couple more games, maybe they just pull the plug. But yeah, great result there. Just what we were looking for. Jaguars versus Chiefs. There wasn't really much hope anyway, right? Like, I don't think anybody was getting up in the morning on Sunday hoping that Jacksonville was going to find a way. But yeah, so Chiefs win. Not a huge deal. Only matters for draft pick stuff. Jacksonville currently picking just a little bit ahead of Denver. So they're going to have to find a way to a win or 2 this year if we want Denver to pass them. Browns, Dolphins, again, we kind of wanted the Browns to win just so they can bank a win, but we weren't counting on it. I don't think any of us were really expecting the Browns to beat a good team like the Dolphins. Same with the Texans and the Giants, even though we wanted it. But good news here, the Steelers found their way to a 3rd win, and I believe that is great news because, and I could be wrong here, but I do suspect that Pittsburgh is going to have a very hard time finding wins the rest of the season. Their offense is way too bad. They're kind of like Denver with a slightly worse defense. They just can't move the ball. They can't score. It's so hard for them to actually put points up on the board that it's hard to imagine them winning more than another game this whole season. So them banking this win against the Saints team that is just as bad, but I suspect the Saints are going to find a way to win a game or 2 down the stretch because they're going to get some players back, is definitely a positive. Like, we need the Steelers to bank a couple of wins to make sure their pick is below Denver's, basically. That's the way I'm looking at it, and I think this one was a big one for them to score. It was a rare opportunity for them. They got it, The Raiders, however, could not cash in on getting to play Jeff Saturday in his first ever game as a coach at any level. Was he a high school coach? I don't remember. But either way, they had a great opportunity at home against Matt Ryan and a pretty lackluster Colts team, and they couldn't get it done. This was a great opportunity for the Raiders to bank a game, which at this point, I kind of suspect they're going to lose out. I think the Raiders lose out. They do have a way of being competitive in a lot of these games. They're constantly close. They have the ability to make plays. They have the ability to put up points, but somehow, some way, it never manifests itself into a win. They just keep dropping games. So I don't know if I see them winning another game the rest of the year. That was a great opportunity. They blew it. Obviously, we're going to hope they find their way against Denver next week. That would be a absolute death knell for Denver, and it would be a little bit of a spark for the Raiders. But I see a Raiders team that is just going to go 2-15, honestly. I don't see nothing going on there. Cowboys-Packers, I believe this is a good result. Cowboys getting knocked down a tad, I believe is good. That Cowboys team, to me, is flawed enough to where I could see them losing some games down the line, including to some teams that they're clearly better than. Like, they are better than the Packers, right? Like, they lost, but they're better than the Packers. So, I believe the Cowboys, if we end up in a wild card battle with them, could be caught. So, I believe that them losing is good. Granted, double-edged sword, the Packers now have a little bit of life to them, but I suspect that the Packers will get knocked back down to earth in the next few weeks. So, I'm not too concerned about that. So, Packers do get some life. Cardinals won, which I think is great news. I believe the Cardinals winning is exactly what we wanted. We own the tiebreaker against the Cardinals, so I'm not worried about... if we end up in a tiebreaker situation with them for a wild card spot, we've got it no matter what. We don't know about that with the Rams yet. And maybe this isn't the case now because of Cooper Kupp's injury, but I think that the Rams are more likely to find a little bit of life down the stretch than the Cardinals. I look at that Cardinals team and I think they're going to win a couple games, but I don't see any way they get on a hot streak and end up making the playoffs. I think there's just something bad in the water over there, and it's not going away. So Cardinals banking a win is nice. And also, if you're thinking about it from a draft pick perspective, because the Rams pick is right there with Denver's pick, I feel like the Rams are going to find a way to a couple of wins down the stretch. I just do. That team is not going to mail it in on the year. They're not going to suddenly bench Stafford and bench Kupp and stuff like that because they don't know how to slow down. They don't know how to quit. They just want to keep going. They want to keep chasing because they're all in and they know it. And they know that nothing good can come from them throwing this season away. So they're going to overextend themselves, if anything, to try to be good again. Like, that's why they tried to trade for Brian Burns, which at this point, by the way, I kind of wish happened. Brian Burns would not make that team any good. And then they'd have really no draft capital for years. Sunday night did end with a little bit of a disappointing result. We did not get help from the Chargers. They did help us against the Broncos, but they went scoreless in the second half against the Niners, and the Niners completed the comeback. And it's not surprising. Honestly, the Chargers did well to hang in there against a really getting healthy Niners team, with the Chargers themselves being ridiculously injured at the moment. But they were a little bit of a tease there. It really looked like they were going to find a way, and they were just one play short constantly. And that division is obviously not what we thought it was going to be, although at this point, for our purposes, it doesn't matter because as much as the division ended up being overrated, the AFC West, the Broncos are still not in any kind of contention for a division crown anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But if the Niners beat the Cardinals next week, and they may not have to even deal with Kyler Murray in that game, then we are talking about being second place in the division on our bye week. So, not ideal, but not unexpected. I will say this, the bottom line is if we want the division, we're going to have to beat the Niners head-to-head. That was probably the case anyway, so be it. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Maybe I'll do this every week if people like it. And yeah, see you guys later on.